So let's talk about the A6 for a little bit. So the A6 is a mid-size sedan. It sits above the A4, so it's like a 5 Series E-Class competitor. And ironically, the A7, which I've just recently driven, shares a lot with the A6. In fact, there are very few differences between the A7 and the A6. Body style obviously is one of them, but this A6 particularly is a slightly sort of lower spec model, so it's got a smaller engine in it. Instead of a 250 kilowatt petrol engine, it's got a 140 kilowatt diesel engine. It still goes really nicely. I mean, 140 kilowatts is nothing to sneeze at. One thing that's really obvious about this A6 is that it's not designed or built as a performance car. Again, there's nothing you can do to make it feel like a performance car. It's just not. It is a very, very comfortable car for daily driving, for long road driving. I am 6 hours 40 minutes into this trip, not feeling remotely tired or remotely sore. The seats are really comfortable. Suspension on this is really good, even though it's not the fancy air suspension, but it's just an incredibly comfortable car. It's really big as well. It's spacious. The boot is massive. So all round, as a sedan, the A6 is a very, very well-rounded package. As I said, it shares a lot to the A7, so the entire interior is almost identical to the A7. It doesn't have the sporty steering wheel with like the flat bottom thing, so it's got a pretty standard steering wheel, but it's fantastic, honestly. It's got the digital cockpit, it's got the really big ass MMI display, it's got the completely digital climate control. So all in all, it's pretty much the A7 on the inside. This comes in at about 900,000 without optional extras, so it is about 300,000 Rand cheaper than the A755. So big price jump there in the engine, and the A7 has two features that this car does not have. The A6 does not have Quattro, although you can spec it with Quattro, and the A6 does not have the all-wheel steering, which you can add to the A6 if you wanted. Personal preference for me is the A7. I prefer the body shape. I like the idea of the boot opening, and it's just like really big, like the loading space there is massive. But like if this is the kind of car you want, you don't like the body shape of the A7, and you're not an Avant fan, which turns out most people in South Africa are not, then a sedan like this is, like, I mean, it's a 5 Series and E-Class competitor. This is what they make in the 5 and the E, and I think this competes really, really, really well with all of those. This one's got a couple of cool optional extras in. I'll rattle those off in a bit. The sunroof. It's an incredibly comfortable car to drive. It's massively economical. I'm 527 kilometers into this trip. I haven't even used a half a tank of fuel. So yeah, just, you know, you can drive this car for days and days and days on end. I'm averaging 5.7 liters per 100. Let's think about that for a second. 5.7 liters per 100 on a car this size is really, really impressive. Even on the long road, it is properly impressive. So, just, I mean, the Audi group, the VW group know how to make diesel engines, and I've said this before. Like, I know they got themselves into some hot water with a bunch of stuff there, but man, they make good diesel engines. So some of the cool things that come with this car, some are optional extras, some are standard. This digital display is really cool. It's got a bunch of different options. There's a sport option and dynamic option, and you can kind of lay it out however you want. Multifunctional steering wheel is great. Adaptive cruise control, and adaptive cruise control that's radar guided. That has been absolutely fantastic on this trip. Roads are not very busy, so being able to just keep it at 120, and if you approach a car that's going slower than you, the A6 just backs off and maintains that speed until you can pass them safely. It really makes driving a car like this really, really, really nice. It's got a Bang & Olufsen sound system, which is pretty good. Not as good as I was expecting a Bang & Olufsen to be. It's kind of, it it feels like it lacks a bit of body. Like there's no like presence in the system. It doesn't, like, it's really clear, crystal clear, but it doesn't, like, layout on the dash is just gorgeous. There's nothing not to like in this car. Like, everything is really well done. As I said, it's not built as a performance car, so even in dynamic mode you don't feel like alive. It's not an RS or an S. I'm hoping to get hold of an S6, which is the same car, just with all the performance bits. That'll be a completely different review though. But everything in this car is well built. Ergonomically, it's great. It's got a head-up display, that is an optional extra. It's got all these screens, they're haptic. It's a fantastically good car to drive. There's absolutely nothing I could fault in the A6. As I said, I prefer the A7 body shape to the A6 body shape, and that's purely just, I love that whole sort of sportback look. I love the boot that opens there, and this one as well. It's also got the electronic boot. You kick your foot underneath it, the boot opens up. So if it was my money, I probably would go for, actually no, if I was buying an A and not an S, I would actually go for this engine. The A7 55 TFSI is a 250 kilowatt engine, and it goes really nicely. Don't get me wrong, it is a really, really good engine. But I just feel like if I want performance, I'd rather commit and buy an S and get like real performance. Everything is kind of built for performance. I would spec one of these, probably this engine in the A7 body shape, and two options that I would add in there is Quattro and the air suspension. So probably peg that car at about $1 million, $1.1 million. And it would just be absolutely fantastic. I think that would be the ultimate just big cruiser GT car to drive around in. It's economical, it's comfortable, spacious, you can put anything in it. That's kind of where I'd spec one of these if I was buying one.